Hello and welcome to the Australia Today. I'm your host Jai Bharadwaj, and with us is Pallavi Jan, our editor, Sheba, who is CEO of Multi Connections, and very handsome Ellen, who is Labour Party's candidate from Epping. He just gave shivers to the outgoing premier this time around. Let's discuss the NSW state election here at Australia Today. Welcome, every one of you. And I must say, nothing better is going towards where we wanted to see results as Indian Australians, as multicultural communities representatives. Let's go to Pallavi Jain, our editor, straight away and ask her, Pallavi, what are you seeing in Sydney? Is it euphoria? Is it what people? I'm sure people are not coming out on the streets the way they do in India, but they must be doing it electronically on WhatsApp, on social media, Facebook, Twitter. What is happening there in Sydney? Tell me the mood.
Jay, let me first start with the results that we know so far. So we have Karishma Kalianda, who has won from Liverpool. And in a way, this win is historic because she's the first India-born Indian Australian, where both her parents are also Indian, who has been elected as a member of the New South Wales Legislative Assembly. So this is the first time that's happening. The second thing is that we also have Daniel Mukhi, who has been the shadow treasurer. Of course, the seat was not up for contest. But in all likelihood, but he is going to become the treasurer of New South Wales, and he is actually the first Australian politician to take his oath on the Bhagavad Gita during his swearing in. We also have Gurmesh Singh, who's won Coffs Harbour. He's from the Nationals, and he's actually retained that seat. He was already MP from there. So we are going to have these three people in the New South Wales Parliament, and I think this is probably the best performance ever in terms of the Indian Australian community. We also have Prue Carr, who's the deputy Labour leader. She has also retained her seat from Londonderry, and she has part Indian ancestry. And against her was also Indian origin candidate from the Liberal Party, Samantha Talakola, who has lost the election. Prue Carr has retained her seat. And then right now we actually have a nail biter, a cliffhanger with Samir Pandey, and he's contesting from Winston Hills, he's giving a really tough contest to the incumbent Mark Taylor. At one stage, everyone thought he's winning. Even we thought that he had actually won the election, but it's a very close contest. Just to update you, he is trailing Mark Taylor, the incumbent, by around 12 to 1300 votes at this stage. But there's still around 40% votes to be counted. So this is going to be a nail biting finish. And would, yeah.
Just to interrupt you there, I'm sorry. Tell me about how Ellen did. Probably his election was most worst. Nobody thought that he will give that kind of fright to the outgoing premier. How did he do that? We will ask him, but tell me in like few lines or few words, what do you understand by his campaign rally?
Absolutely fantastic, because he is standing against the outgoing premier Dominic Perrottet from Epping, and it is in no way a one-sided contest. And as we were speaking with Alan before, that the results are yet to come out completely. So it is an absolutely fantastic performance by Alan, and we will wait and watch what happens. But it's going to be really exciting. And do want to mention here that Mohit Kumar, the other Indian origin candidate who stood from Riverstone, he was from the Liberal Party, and that was a Liberal seat, but he has lost that seat. And we also have Aryan Pillai, who has from the Liberals, who has lost Fairfield. So this is to summarize the election results so far. But I think let's go to Alan and get his thoughts on what's happening.
Tell me, Alan, what did you do? Or what magic did you do in that constituency of Epping to kind of get the kind of results you had, kind of votes you had there, and the support, and that too against a sitting premier? What was your strategy? How did you get that?
Well, thank you very much, Joe, for having me. And it's obviously been a late night and an early morning, and we're very, very thrilled with the results in New South Wales. To have a New South Wales Labor government, absolutely fantastic after 12 years. And we're not losing hope in Epping either. It's still a very close contest. There's
Wow.
still big booths to come in at Carlingford Public and the pre-poll booths. So definitely not conceding the seat.
I'm
As it
sorry. I'm
stands,
sorry. We thought let's put it on the line then. Alan is still in the contest, and hope for the best.
absolutely. So as it stands, the premier is leading, but we'll wait for all the votes to come in. I just think there's been a huge mood for change in New South Wales, and it's been reflected in the seat of Epping. We had 4 weeks, I think, to run a campaign, but we used every second of that time. We got out into the community. I was at school gates. I was at the shops. I was standing by the side of the road. And really people got to see me. Of course, I was the candidate for Epping 4 years ago, so we were able to build on the recognition from last time. And, we really ran a high energy campaign. And I think combined with the overall swing to Labor in the election, we're going to have a very close result against the sitting premier. So very, very proud of that. Very grateful to people in Epping, Carlingford, and across those suburbs for their wonderful support.
Thank you, Alan, for those words. Let me bring in Shiva. She probably knows the multicultural communities more than anybody else there in Sydney. She's CEO of Multi Connections, which kind of indulges into the behaviors of how these communities react to different things. Shiva, why such a result in NSW? How do you see it? Was it like apparent that it will be like this, or it is a surprise for everyone, including yourself?
Thanks, Jay. As you said, I think first and foremost, multicultural audiences play a very, very important role, because when you look at the country, you have 51% of people who are born overseas or who have one parent born overseas. So, and I think very often people tend to forget the massive influence that multicultural audiences and migrants can actually play in shaping the country and its policies. But I think it is not a surprise, because we kind of knew that Labour was quietly gaining grounds. And I think if I was to summarize my thinking, it would be more listening, more in touch with the grassroots, more in touch with what can I do better from my past learnings. And I think this is where Labour scored actually majorly compared to Liberal.
Wow, that's very interesting. So Sydney is one of the most expensive city. Sydney has its own issues in terms of living, jobs, traveling, transport is huge issue. Why did a whole of the Western Sydney and Northwestern Sydney, 12, 16 seats there I saw, it was all painted red. There was no Liberal to be seen. However, 7 of those seats were Liberal. Why that happened? Is it a follow-up of Daly, which we saw in the federal election, or it is different for us this time?
I think, Jai, the pain points of what a common man is going through is really important for a political leader or any kind of leader, whether it's a business leader or political leader, to understand. And the fact that the common man was hurting whether it's the families, they're all family people, they have children, they have bills to pay. And I don't think people were really understanding the woes that the common people were actually suffering from. And I think to a certain extent, some of Chris Minn's policies, and it was by no means, here's a grand vision that I'm, outlining for New South Wales. It was those little simple things like, here are some simple issues, here are some simple challenges, and these are the solutions that I can provide. I'll give you a small example for the cost of transport. Capping the tolls, or let's say, I think he had gone to a hospital and he saw the long wait lines, and he immediately realized that there was an issue with the hospitals. How do we upgrade the services and outlay some budget for that? So those little things that hurt people on the common people on a day-to-day basis, I think that's what he addressed, and that kind of really paid off.
Let me bring in Pallavi before I go to Ellen. Pallavi, in India there is a saying that health, house, and hospital. If you get these three things right, probably you win elections. So, did Labour government kind of put their plans in place for these three things? That's why they are there where they are right now, in terms of having almost 50 seats in their kitty.
Jay, I think Shiba encapsulated, the points around probably some of the things that Chris Minns mentioned, they struck a chord with the public. But I have to tell you here that the New South Wales government actually is going to be in surplus even this year. If one talks about the economic management, then surely they are performing better than many other states. I think, but of course, cost of living and transport and health and education, these are always issues in any elections, because state elections are generally fought on local issues. But I think one factor that probably should be mentioned, and I think political pundits will analyze this in the days to come, is that there were a lot of reports about factionalism in the Liberal Party. And it seems that this was the case. This analysis was done even post federal elections, was done post Victoria elections, and there were these allegations that allegedly, that factional politics, rather than a genuine selection, was deciding candidates. That there were deals being brokered between the different factions, and I think that somewhere along the line these things matter. For instance, in the upper house seat, if you look at the New South Wales Liberal ticket, you have no multicultural representation there, and we know that it's not that there are people not available, and these seats were I mean, it's very surprising that how come there's not a single person from a multicultural background, and Liberals have had a daily experience. They've suffered losses after losses after losses, and after this loss, barring Tasmania, you have a Labour government everywhere. So I think besides everything else that's been spoken about, I think this is something that the Liberal Party will really have to introspect, because as far as the economy is concerned, New South Wales, as I mentioned, is still likely, the projection is that it will be in surplus. So I think that probably has played a role. We'll know going ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Ellen, tell me what was the candidate selection process in your party, that you had a Samir Pandey, a Karishma, Ellen, and a number of Bangladeshi candidate, Nepali candidate. You had one from Fiji. Who are the selection people this time around who kind of understood that that multicultural communities no more want your grants, they want a seat on the table? So give me some insight there, how it happened.
Yeah, look, I think there's a growing recognition within the Labor Party, in particular, that our parliamentary representation needs to reflect the diversity of the community, and our parliaments are better when they actually look like Australia, or they look like New South Wales. And the growth of Indian diaspora other South Asian communities in Sydney has been enormous. So we had, Karishma Kalyanda, Samir Pandey, Ash in the seat of Oakley, myself in Epping, Alex Karki, Nepalese candidate, community candidate in the seat of Kellyville, who did extremely well. So candidate selection processes can vary from seat to seat. In the case of the Labor Party, it was a combination of rank and file pre-selections in some seats and others which were more centrally decided. But I think overall, I mean, the results speak for themselves. Labor got the balance right, got the mix of candidates right, and it's a fantastic result. And it speaks to the changing nature of Sydney suburbs, where I live, Parramatta, Epping area, huge swings in Parramatta with a huge South Asian community, swings to Labor. In the seat of Riverstone, again, double-digit swings to Labor. In Epping, the demographics, Jay, have really changed in this part of Sydney. I ran 4 years ago in Epping. In the last 4 years, we've had spice shops appearing in Epping for the first time. There's a very growing South Asian community in Epping, and some of those people are permanent residents, and they're going to be citizens next time and will be able to vote. So it is the demographics of these suburbs of Sydney are changing, and of course it's linked with large Chinese Australian and Korean Australian populations. So it really is a slice of multicultural Australia, and Labor Party candidates and our representation is evolving to reflect that.
Thank you. Shiva, you are a person of numbers. And the Australian census just came a few months back. And why these politicians don't see the numbers the way you people are able to see, constituency-wise, booth-wise, who is living there? And another thing I want to bring, because you personally know and have worked with Karishma. What is she like? Tell me, what does it mean? Her election in that Liverpool seat, what does it mean for Indian Australians or multicultural community members there in NSW? Is it a daily movement for Indian community there for us?
Thanks, Jay. And I completely agree. It is very much a daily movement. Most politicians have decided to look at the numbers, and we know that the Indian diaspora, the South Asian diaspora, is growing so rapidly. While it's number 2 now, it's actually number 2 to UK. It's actually poised to become number 1 very shortly. Now, are we reflecting in our leadership, political leadership, the people, as Alan said, around us? No, not yet. Factional politics and factionalism within the the parties are playing a big role. Where they used to doing things traditionally, pre-selecting candidates who probably look and feel and think like them. Yes, Jay, they understand the numbers. They only understand the numbers for the vote, not for their voice. And I think what has happened this time in Liverpool, where Karishma obviously is going to now start playing a very strong role, is the fact that a voice is being heard, a voice that matters, a voice that reflects the community that she's representing in Liverpool, and not somebody who's been foisted on into that local community and brought in from somewhere else. It doesn't work that way. So I agree, Jay. Huge numbers. We represent a massive. I mean, Australia is the most multicultural country in the world today. But are our political leaders taking that seriously? I still have a question mark about it.
Okay, tell me about Daniel Mukhi. He probably will be a minister in this government. How do you see him? What's your experience with him? And what does it mean to have a minister there to kind of with whom you easily can advocate with? So what does it mean to us?
So with Daniel Mukhi, just like Karishma, has been very much people who are involved with their communities, with the local engagement, and it's not about just trying to project their own personalities over and above. I think what I see in Daniel Mukhi is somebody who has been a quiet achiever over the years. The little experience I've had with him, he's always been very undertoned. He knows what the issues are. He's very focused. And if he was to become the treasurer, I am positive he's going to do a really good job. Very unassuming and very focused in terms of what the issues are at hand.
Wow, Pallavi, tell me, as a journalist there in Sydney, what does that mean with a kind of inexperienced team which Chris Mintz will be leading? Only one person has ever been a minister in whatever the coming cabinet we'll see. So, will it hinder their process of delivering, or is it a positive that they come with no baggage? How do you see it?
I think, Jay, I don't foresee having a young team, or people who are being elected for the first time as a hindrance. I think Chris Minns, if I'm not mistaken, this was a part of his strategy to get young blood into the party, and I think he's kind of done that, and one can see that in the way the tickets have been given. So I don't think that is going to be much of a hindrance. And here, because there is a culture of having shadow ministries as well, so we are going to have people who have experience in that regard. Say, for instance, Daniel Mukhi, who has been the shadow treasurer for some years now. So I think I don't foresee that as a hindrance. And let's see how things go. And I do want to make a point here that Liberal has been in power in New South Wales for 12 years. So it was going to be difficult for them in any case, because there's always an anti-incumbency factor after over a decade of governance. But I guess, as Shiva was saying earlier, that they should have listened, because that's how you win elections, when you actually listen to your electorate. But I think that's how politics works. And but I don't think, as a journalist, I don't foresee a new young cabinet having any difficulties in terms of doing it for the first time. But of course, we'll have to wait and watch, and we will keep an eye on how the government is functioning.
Okay, Alan, you tell me, is it, I mean, I'm very curious about it. Is it very easy for bureaucracy to turn thing around for new ministers, or new ministers are kind of more likely to be hard taskmasters?
Well, look, I think there's been a mood for change and for a fresh start. And, our politics is moving into a new phase. We've been through the difficult years of the pandemic, but there's now a sense of hope and optimism and a new generation coming to power. And I said this on the booths yesterday that, every now and then you have a government there for 12 years. You need new people, new energy, new vision, new ideas. And I'm sure that the incoming ministers, Chris Minns, ran a professional, disciplined, outstanding campaign, and he will come in with very clear ideas about the changes that he wants to make, and he will be supported by people that have been practicing their roles as shadow ministers for many, many years now. So I have no doubt in the capability of the front bench of the incoming Labor government. And obviously there will be change, but that's what people have voted for, and I think Labor will be moving pretty swiftly to enact the policies that it has a mandate for.
Shiva, can you kind of point to me 5-6 important things which this government urgently need to look into? I'm not only talking about the multicultural communities, but of course focus on them. Give me some pointers which are otherwise they start getting the bad press. These are my issues and they need to be solved now. Is there something like that in NSW?
Definitely, Jay. And this is where I think attending to the small things that hurt the common man, if they start looking at it, it'll help. Number one, we know that inflation is an all-time high, and families are suffering majorly in terms of paying their bills, their energy bills, the utility bills, looking after their children. The grocery, bills have absolutely blown out of context. So anything that eases the cost of living, whether be it in terms of transportation, the tolls, the energy bills, or more facilities for the children, would definitely help. And this is where I always say, like, my favorite one is, if political leaders looked at the 3F, they would definitely win. One being the family. Is the family hurting? How can I help the family? In very many ways, which also includes a rental crisis which is happening. How do we make it easier? How do we, kind of uh, put more rental friendly policies along with the landlords, and so on and so forth? The second one is finance. How do we make it easier for them to stretch their budgets? How do we make them easier for them to make sure that their aspirations are met, whether it's education and so on? And finally, the future, because at the end of the day, that's where the hospitals and all the infrastructure and the other stuff that can really fit in. Because at the end of the day, if we are not able to take care of our health, which is really the wealth that I'm talking about, then you have a set of people who are absolutely disadvantaged from an early from the early years. So I would say, if they start focusing on the common people, the little pain points that they have, they're going to make good grounds. I just want to bring in something else that you had just asked Alan about, the fact that this is an all new team. How do you see it perform? And I remember, like, when Anthony Albanese came in, everyone had a question mark. How are they going to go? Because, a lot of these ministers were never ministers, and so on and so forth. But how seamless was the transition? That is where the leaders' traits come out in terms of getting. And I think Chris Min, from what I know of him, educated, an Ivy School guy, he's a lawyer. He is the son of a school principal. So he's very much a person who understands not just the common people, but he's also educated. He understands what the future should look like. So I reckon if he starts looking at those little issues and start really addressing them, it will be a very seamless transition for the better.
Fantastic. Let's see what kind of transition it is, what kind of first few months we kind of call it honeymoon period for any government. We'll give him 6 months, and after that we will do what we do, scrutinize. Pallavi, what are your last words to conclude this session of ours? I don't think we journalists can give advice, but some wise words from you.
Well, Jay, I think more than wise words, I would just like to say that this is truly an incredible moment for, I think, the Indian Australian community, because if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the best performance by the Indian diaspora in a political context, I think, in any state election. And it's going to be very interesting to see Daniel Mukhi. As I said, most likely he is going to be the next treasurer. Karishma Kalianda, as I said, the first India-born Indian Australian with both parents of Indian heritage, being elected from Liverpool. And we, of course, already have Gurmesh Singh there. We already had him there as well. But I think so. I think this is a pretty significant moment, especially given the results in Victoria. I think this is a day that makes me happy. But going forward, it's also about the entire state, not just about one community. So wishing Chris Minns the best, and let's hope he delivers.
Thank you, Pallavi. Alan, before I let you go, your concluding remarks.
Yeah, look, I think it's an extraordinary result for Labor. So full credit to Chris Minns, Prukar, Daniel Mukhi, and all the senior team. I think the results speak for themselves. We're not out of it in Epping. I want to give a huge thank you to the voters there, Epping, Carlingford, and the suburbs, particularly from the Indian community, the South Asian community. I know there was support. I know there was tremendous pride in the candidacy, and so from the bottom of the heart, I want to say thank you. I grew up in Carlingford, Jay. 35 years ago, my family
Wow.
came to that area. I was the little boy trailing with my mum and my dad around the shopping centres. And yesterday at the booths, I saw young Indian Australian children, migrants, with their parents, and they were looking at me, and their eyes lit up, and it really touched me to just see how anything is possible in Australia. And for the next generation of kids growing up in the seat of Epping, I hope they will be inspired by what we achieved. And but really a lot to look forward to in New South Wales under a new government.
And believe me, we are not letting go Epping. We'll be
Yes.
watching it till the last word. So best of luck there.
Thank you.
Shiva, tell me a few words, last remark, but make it hit hard to probably the incoming government and outgoing government, both, that what they lacked and what these people need to focus. Your last remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. I think I'd like to really start concluding by the fact that this is probably for me, and I have been involved in election campaigns and worked quite closely with the Liberal, know the Labour guys very well. Probably the most respectful campaign I have seen happening over the past few weeks and months. So, nobody was, flagging each other or bagging each other. So I thought that was fantastic. It represented, and I have to give it to Dominic Perrottet, that he actually ran a very respectful campaign and full of respect for his opposition leader, who was contesting against him. So number one is that. Number two is the fact that, and I hope to see Alan obviously, bagging the Epping seat. So all the best, Alan. It just not just those little kids there, but it makes all of us proud, even though we are not so young. And more importantly, I think my last few words would be that, yes, Pallavi summarized it well. The Liberal government has actually done a good job. Let's face facts. It's just that they lost touch with grassroots, and they stopped hearing, listening, and taking learnings on board, like the daily learning, like gender diversity is fine, but you can't just have more white men replaced with white women. Let's put it this way, okay? So the cultural diversity and all kinds of diversity needs to be replaced, not just cultural. And to that extent, I think what I would like the new government to take forward is that let's really tap on talent at its best. And there should be no prejudice whatsoever in terms of and you don't have to bring in a South Asian person or a Chinese person just because I want to have diversity there. But there is so much of talent, professionalism, critical skills that these audiences have. Tap on them and make the most to really take the economy forward. That's what I would conclude with.
Pallavi, you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I think it's a point that Shiba made, but that it's not about having diversity for the sake of diversity. Basically, as she mentioned, that there's so many talented people. Basically, merit should be the topmost thing. Your ethnic background shouldn't become a hindrance. That is the main thing, that you should not be discriminated against, or it shouldn't be that you're not given an opportunity because you come from a different ethnic or linguistic background. I think that is the moot point here, that what one saw, and I think we have done reports on this, especially on the Labour upper house ticket. The issue is not that you have to have a quota of X or Y number of males or females, or quota of how many people from which community, but a general perception was that people from different communities who deserve to be on the ticket or who have worked really hard were probably allegedly not given a chance. So that is what is fundamental here, that your race or religion or your ethnicity should not become a hindrance on you getting anywhere. It should be merit that counts.
Thank you, Pallavi, for your really kind words, enlightening words. But I believe that people here on this panel have paved that pathway for generation behind them to walk on them and succeed. That's what I believe. Thank you, every one of you, to join us here at Australia today. And we'll be bringing you Daniel Mukhi, Karishma, and Gurmesh in the coming week. We'll be talking to them, interviewing right here at Australia Today. For now, thank you for joining. And I wish NSW does very well in terms of what multicultural communities aspire to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks.
Thank